This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Interleague matchup here in St. Louis. The Minnesota Twins and the St. Louis Cardinals in a brief two-game series. Jim Hayes is here. That's recording. I'm Dan McLaughlin, and welcome to Cardinals baseball. The Cardinals playing a fun brand of baseball already with 5 walk-offs this year, and it's been fun to watch.
Well, winning is fun. That's the first point, but the walk-offs certainly help. I think that adds to the excitement, but I think the other factor, Dan, is I think it's the personnel of this Cardinal team with Ozuna and guys like Martinez, both Martinez's, and Wong and Fowler. You've got guys with energy, with passion, and I would throw Harrison Bader into that. We've got guys that are just playing very hard.
Now, let's take a look at the GMC leaderboard. Since April 12th, the best records in baseball. The only team that has been better than the Cardinals, the Bronx Bombers. The Red Sox off to a great start. Arizona as well, as we saw earlier this season. And the Rockies have picked it up as well. Coming up, an interleague matchup. The Minnesota Twins, the St. Louis Cardinals. Budweiser, wherever legendary MLB moments happen, Budweiser will be there. And by Chevrolet, the #1 selling brand in the St. Louis area. Find yours at your Mid-America Chevy dealer. What a gorgeous night. We're at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. And along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Jim Hayes is here as well. The Cardinals, exciting wins over the weekend against the Chicago Cubs. 2 of those coming via the walk-off. And the Cardinals are now 20-12 on the season. Meanwhile, Minnesota comes in 13-17. They are 2 games back of Cleveland. No team above 500 in the American League Central Division. Cleveland at 17-17.
Good news on the Cardinals side is there's a buzz going on right now, and I think the buzz started when the weather got better and Cardinals started winning, especially, Dan, here at home. They've won 10 out of 11 here at Busch Stadium, and there's just an energy despite some losses to some key players to the disabled list and some minor injuries. The Cardinals are just feeling it right now, and the Twins are coming off of a good series against the Chicago White Sox where they won 3 out of 4.
Well, the Cardinals at 20-12. They lead Milwaukee by 1.5 games in the National League Central. Pittsburgh 2.5 out. Chicago with the 5 straight losses, 3 against the Cardinals, 3.5 games out. And Cincinnati still only 8 wins this year. That's it.
Well, it's interesting when you look around the standings. There were only 2 teams last year that finished under 400 in terms of their winning percentage for the course of the year. This year we have 7 teams at the moment that are below 400. So there are a lot of haves and have-nots throughout baseball. And the clear picture to me is you have to take care of beating the have-nots. And the Cardinals have done that with the White Sox and with the Cincinnati Reds.
John Gant, 3 perfect innings of relief back on the 26th of April. Overall, 1-4 in 9 career starts. His last game that he pitched in was down in the minor leagues. He hurled 6 innings, 2 runs on 5 hits, and that was his 4th win at Memphis. Teams are tested with their depth. The Cardinals certainly are right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting part of the season for the Cardinals because you've got no Molina, you've got no Pham for at least a short time, and you just have to find ways to fill that gap. And of course, Adam Wainwright is not here, and we do expect him back soon. So you've got to have depth. You played a number, Dan, and we'll get into this as we roll along, a number of extra inning games, and if this is the time to have depth in your organization when you're playing a lot of extra inning games.
As a look at the Hall of Famer and manager of the Twins, Paul Molitor, his lineup tonight. Joe Mauer, then Brian Dozier, Max Kepler, Eduardo Escobar, Eddie Rosario, Robbie Grossman, Bobby Wilson, Ere Adrianza, and Fernando Romero, the pitcher for Minnesota. A lot of lefties in the lineup tonight for Minnesota. And let's turn to Rick Horton's Toyota keys to the game.
Well, sleep is overrated, and I put it in quotes because we all know it's actually not true, but every baseball player has heard somebody say that to him in the last 100 years because you have days where you have just long nights, perhaps the night before, or a tough stretch, and guys are tired. And a long, tough, emotional series with the Chicago Cubs, certainly there are Cardinal players that are tired and working on less sleep, but you have to mentally get yourself ready to play the Twins.
Here's Joe Mauer. And the first pitch is a strike, and we're underway in this brief 2-game series. Mauer is batting .291. Just 1 home run. He has driven in 8. A lot of injuries on both sides, the Cardinals and Twins. Gant has that unique delivery, but also a unique changeup. It's the Vulcan grip, and it's a very good pitch for him.
Yeah, he splits his fingers on the ball, and it just takes the speed off of it. And, you know, pitchers will throw changeups however it's most comfortable.
There it is, the changeup for strike 1 and 2.
And it essentially acts like a forkball for Gant. It has downward movement. You look at it and you think, well, that looks like a split to me. Well, it kind of is a split, but it's a different split between 2 different fingers. And
the 1-2. Gant has that little hesitation in his delivery, and it actually was a delivery that was banned going into this season. Brian Eversgerd, the bullpen coach of the Cardinals, had him obviously in the minor leagues a year ago. Had a little hitch in the delivery. That's up and in to Joe Mauer.
Well, we see Matt Carpenter working deep counts, and that's been a constant in his career. Joe Mauer does the same thing. He has 26 walks. And the Cardinals bullpen is a little bit light here tonight.
And it's a leadoff walk to Joe Mauer. Defensively behind Gant. And Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Ozuna, Bader, and Fowler. On the infield, Jerko, DeYoung, Wong, and Carpenter, and Bryson Kelly. Starting for the injured Yadier Molina. Yadi, if you're watching, we hope you're doing better. Thinking about you.
100%.
There's Brian Dozier.
You know his teammates are.
You bet. And there's strike one.
Understand the players FaceTimed him right after the big win against the Cubs, and they knew he'd be watching, of course. And you know, that's your brother. That's your guy that's not here. He's your brother. He's hurt, and you just want to make, you know, he's not going to think you're forgetting about him, but you still need that connection and that contact. Carson Kelly is going to have a fair amount of pressure on his shoulders over the next month or so.
Here's a 0-1 pitch to Dozier. Good power at the plate. And that gets through Bryson Kelly. And Mauer advancing to second base.
Well, instead of trying to smother that ball, he tried to pick it, and it didn't hop up. It just stayed down, and Kelly thought he could pick it. I would say that's a mistake.
Ruled a wild pitch on Gant. Dozier 2 years ago, 42 home runs. Last year with 34. And the 1-1. It's a good changeup there. 4 of the last 6 wins for the Cardinals are in their final at bat. It has been so much fun, and this homestand certainly over the weekend with the big crowds and the Cubs in town, and the rivalry is always good, but it's gotten even better. And the 1-2 to Dozier from John Gant. Lifted in the air to right. There's Fowler. Makes the catch, and Mauer stays put at second.
You mentioned, Dan, that the Cardinals have had the 5 walk-off wins. The Twins on the other side have had 5 walk-off losses. So all the positive emotion you're talking about with the Cardinals, the Twins have kind of had to deal with that feeling of, uh-oh, what's going to happen now? They lost 10 out of 11 games in one stretch. Actually 11 out of 12. And Paul Molitor, I have great respect for him. He got his team to the playoffs somehow, some way last season. But they've had some rough sledding, and they've had their share of injuries.
It's Max Kepler in center field. Byron Buxton, he was the Platinum Glove winner for Paul Molitor a year ago. Great defensive player with all kinds of speed and range, but he's injured, so Kepler in center. And the 1-0 pitch. If the Twins would win tonight, it would be their longest winning streak of the year. And there's an old buddy back in town, Lance Lynn. We won't see him in these 2 games, but it looks like the way the rotation is flipping through that we may see him on the next road trip.
You think he'll throw a high percentage of fastballs against the Cardinals?
Oh, yeah. And some on certain people may be in. Here's a 2-0 pitch.
Had a nice visit with Lance. I think he's happy to be where he is, and he knows he got off to a slow start, and without having a normal spring training. The Cardinals dealing with that with Greg Holland, but I think he, in his last start, was his normal Lance Lynn. No walks in 6 innings, and maybe he's turned that corner.
And we all know he is one to never make excuses. We're told, though, the majority of his starts have been in very cold weather. 1-0 Minnesota. Extra base hit for Kepler, and that drives in Mauer. 1-0 Twins.
Not sure Gant has his sharp off-speed pitch yet. It's just sitting there a little bit in the middle of the plate. That one's at 81. Had a little downward movement, Dan, but it wasn't sharp movement. And with Gant's right, he'll get swings and misses on that particular pitch. So he's trying to get a feel for it at the moment.
The Twins came in batting .214 with runners in scoring position, 3rd lowest in baseball. Eduardo Escobar, the switch hitter, 3rd baseman, as they are missing their big bat in Sano. Escobar with 15 doubles on the year to lead their club. And the 1-0 pitch by Gant. You can see that John really fighting the strike zone here. 16 pitches, 9 have been balls.
Well, this is the beginning of the worst nightmare for Mike Matheny, to have Gant not go deep into this game with all of the innings the Cardinals bullpen has thrown in the last week.
The 2-0 pitch to Escobar. The last 2 games, to put it in perspective, Mike Matheny has had to use 9 different relievers, and the bullpen in those 2 games 14 2/3. Over 200 pitches thrown by the bullpen, 207 to be exact. Now time is called.
Again, a good thing that the Cardinals bullpen includes the bullpen in some of the rotation in Memphis.
Absolutely. The Lowe's whole team together, and the starters and relievers, a lot of innings. Got in on his hands, dropped the bat. Just taking it even a step further with those pitches. 207 by the bullpen in back-to-back games. The total number of pitches. It's the most in consecutive days for the Cardinal bullpen since all the way back in 2015. So they need Gant to give them some length in this game tonight. Now Mike is not going to come out and say, well, we'll use this guy here and that guy in this situation, but common sense would tell you that there's probably a couple of guys off limits out there too. Two balls and 2 strikes. Outfield is straight away and deep. And a grounder that's pulled foul. I would hope, as a great friend of mine, Ricky, and you are.
Of course I am.
If I had something in my teeth or on my face, you would say, hey, Dan, you know what? Give it a little wipe right here.
I'd probably just smack it off. But
because, well, I'm sure you would, but because I feel that I'm as close to you going the other way. You feel the same way. I'm going to tell you, you got something green right
on my face.
Lip.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that.
Oh, that's piece of lettuce or what that is?
It is. It's kale.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
Sure.
Would you like some?
No thanks. There's a strikeout. Got him with the changeup, and the first strikeout of the night for Gant. Take a look at the Kubota power stats on Eddie Rosario. 33 hits. 16 have gone for extra bases this year.
So a 7-game hitting streak, but 6 straight games where he's had an extra base hit. So, you know, something to have an extra a hitting streak going, but when you've got some power in that, that's something else.
Yep. I probably wouldn't have said anything to you, but I've got to talk to you for the next 3.5 hours at least.
And I'm so, you know, really, I'm actually thrilled that you didn't wait till we were off the air.
I had to wait for the final camera shot to put you on the air with that. Rosario leads their club in RBI. He is 24, and 12 of those are ready here in the month of May, most in baseball. It's only May 7th, by the way. He's popped those 7 home runs, 24 driven in. He's trying to add to this Twins lead.
Dan, there was a time in baseball where you could pick out the home run hitters in a lineup. They would all stand up there, 6 or 7 guys, and you'd say, yep, that guy's the home run hitter, because he'd be the one that's 6'5", 240, and then this guy would be 6'3", and those are the home run hitters. These guys are not. When you look at Rosario, it doesn't look like that guy.
And the 2-1. Been such a good start for Rosario. Leads in home runs, RBI. Just get a look at the umpiring crew tonight. Hits. Think about Ozzie Albies and what you're talking about. He's 5'8", 155 pounds. He's got 10 home runs for the Braves.
Jose Altuve.
Another one. And the 3-1 pitch by Gant. At some point. Boy, he is working slow.
He is.
25 pitches here in the first inning. 12 of the 25 have been balls.
Boy, they need him to be an Iron Man tonight, don't they?
Oh, yeah. And a 3-1 pitch to Rosario. And that's drilled and fair down into the corner. And Rosario, another extra base hit. He's driven in 25 on the year. 2-0 Minnesota.
Mentioned that a lot of the pitches have just been center cut and not really a lot of movement on Gant's pitches. He doesn't look sharp to me. We've seen him sharp, Dan. In spring training, he was lights out a couple of different times and certainly has had a good showing in AAA in his 5 starts there. 4-0 in his 5 starts in AAA. Low ERA. Everything's going well for him. He's just not sharp at the moment. And he better get it quickly.
Now Robbie Grossman, a switch hitter, batting 176. That's out of play. You're right. This is probably the last thing that Mike Matheny needed to see was tonight's starter just not be sharp. And with the pitch count at 27 already here in the first inning to get 2 outs, you know, you've got to say, well, he's either going to have to go deep one way or another. Might get beat up, but we need innings. Here's an 0-1 pitch to Grossman. And a strike.
I believe I calculated just best case scenario for the guys that I think might be available versus the guys who aren't. And that's, of course, always guesswork because they're not going to really divulge that very much. But just knowing the guys and knowing kind of how they pitch. There's 8 innings in the bullpen. Worst case scenario. I mean, best case scenario.
Little squibber just foul.
So if Gant goes 4, you better not go extra innings. And you're hoping that he goes 6. I think if he goes 6, which is what he's been averaging in AAA, you'd be happy. But going to have some low pitch count innings in the middle of this game.
Grossman, by the way, is 2 for 22 with runners in scoring position this year. Outfield is straight away. I don't remember Gant working this slowly. Now he's been dealing with base runners here in the first inning, but we did a lot of his games the last 2 spring trainings, and usually he was the kind of guy that got the ball, and you know, for me, memory serving correctly, it would be a guy that works a little bit quicker than this.
I guess it wouldn't be unusual for a pitcher to be working quickly when he's feeling good and then slowing down when he's not, just to try to change something.
And it's 2-2.
It's also a little interesting, Dan, that he got ready really late for this game. He was about 2 minutes late, maybe 3, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he was still walking in after the game was supposed to have started, which, you know, either he was off on when he was supposed to get ready or he needed more time to get loose. Just seemed to be off right from the get-go.
That's backhanded by Carpenter. Gant, the low throw, and handles it for the out. 2-0 Minnesota. Bader will hit behind him, and then Dexter Fowler. He had the walk-off homer in Game 3 against the Cubs. That was about 1 o'clock in the morning or so. Then Marcelo Zuna, Jed Jerko, Paul DeYoung, Colton Wong, Carson Kelly, and the pitcher spot, John Gant. Fernando Romero tossed 5 2/3 scoreless innings. That was last Wednesday against the Blue Jays. A win in his major league debut. According to MLB.com, he's the Twins' top pitching prospect.
He can rush it up there too. 96, 97. He'll throw a high number of fastballs and an extremely sharp slider. And he'll also throw a changeup that's about 90 miles an hour.
2 balls and 1 strike. Matt Carpenter leads the club in walks with 22. No surprise, a shift against Carpenter. Matt Carpenter is seeing nearly 5 pitches per plate appearance. We can always expect 2-2, 3-2, 3-1.
And there's value to that.
Yep. There's your leadoff walk.
Maybe the Cardinals will have the same answer for the Twins here in the bottom half of the first inning. Not a sharp inning for John Gant, but maybe he'll settle down. And Cardinals offense has just found ways to battle back into games in the last couple of weeks.
Harrison Bader hitting .261, 1 home run, and he has driven in 2. Now you say, well, .261, that's okay. To take it, but he makes things happen when he plays.
Offensively, on the base paths, and defensively. I love his routes to the ball, his energy that he brings. He plays hard.
Here's a 1-0. We saw some highlights of Romero from his first start. We were viewing that tape last night as we got together to prepare for the telecast this evening, and you were talking about just how good the slider is.
Holy spin rate, Batman.
Pretty good, huh?
Sharp downward tilt. And this from a guy that's already throwing 96, 97 with the fastball.
Always fun when we get together and have a chance to review game film.
Are we is it my house or your house tonight before the day game tomorrow?
Be my house.
Okay.
Yep, you're invited.
I'll bring the popcorn.
And a strikeout of Bader.
He's been just missing corners and gets that outside corner.
Nice round of applause for Dexter Fowler. Last night was his first career walk-off homer and his first ever extra inning home run.
He's had his first bobblehead. It's a year of first for Dexter.
Here it is. Last night, Jason Hayward almost came up with it. Luke Farrell, back-to-back games, back-to-back walk-offs. Dexter Fowler has been all over the Cardinal lineup this year. First, second. He's batted 4th, 5th, and 6th. And tonight, the first time he's been in the 3 spot. Here's a 1-1. And he lifts a high fly ball out to deep left. Rosario back at the wall. It's caught. What a catch. Eddie Rosario. And Carpenter back to the bag at first. Outstanding play. Rosario in left.
Well, sometimes they catch him, sometimes they don't. Last night, Hayward didn't. This time, Rosario does. That's a nice play up against the wall. You've got a lot of things you're dealing with. You're banging into the wall. You have to guess right with the glove and hold on all at the same time. Very easy for that ball to pop out of the glove, but it doesn't.
Rosario with 4 errors this year. And that's the most of any outfielder in all of baseball, but what a play. There's Marcell Ozuna. The Kia drive to success. His career against Minnesota, 10 for 23, and he's driven in 7. Two balls and no strikes. Ozuna had the big hit on Saturday that drove in 2 to tie the game up against Brandon Morrow. And the Cardinals eventually won it with a walk-off from Colton Wong. It's been 81 plate appearances since his last home run. Been talking about dealing with a little bit of a finger issue too, which maybe has complicated things just a bit for him. Outfield deep, straight away. Eddie Rosario in left. Max Kepler, he's in center. Robbie Grossman is in right. Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Escobar, Adrianza, Dozier, Mauer on the infield, and Bobby Wilson is behind the plate. Outside corner, Ozuna is caught looking. 2 strikeouts for Romero. 2-0 Minnesota.
Once again, as he tries to recover from a right groin injury. Tommy did pinch hit last night, but he's still not 100% apparently. GM Michael Gersh told me Pham is improving. He said it's not necessarily a chronic thing where day to day he's bothered by it. Once he's over the hump, he should be good for a while. We're going to give him another day to be sure. Gersh says Pham is available to pinch hit tonight, could be back in the starting lineup tomorrow or Thursday in San Diego. One other note, Bud Norris is dealing with tightness in his right triceps. He told me he's not available tonight, but he's hoping he could be available tomorrow or on Thursday, guys.
All right, Jimmy, thank you. And want to follow up with one more question for you. A lot of fans curious about Adam Wainwright. He's making a rehab start. I believe that was this morning in Springfield. Any idea of how he fared from that?
Yeah, he pitched 5 scoreless, just gave up a couple of hits, and apparently looked great. So, you know, the Cardinals are keeping a close eye. He said he really probably needed one rehab start, if that was it, Dan. I'm assuming the Cardinals will be looking for him to go back into the rotation sooner than later.
That'll be fine.
Well, this is Adam Wainwright today, wearing an unfamiliar number, 36. They asked him why he's wearing that number. He said that was the jersey in my locker, so that's why I'm wearing it. But he did not walk a batter, had a couple of strikeouts. And I'm sure those AA guys were pretty excited to get to face one of the Cardinal greats, Adam Wainwright. And that's a good positive step for him and for the Cardinal rotation.
Three-two to Bobby Wilson, and it's put on the ground to short. There's Paul DeYoung. One away. BJC Healthcare difference maker. And Yadier Molina, the difference that he makes for any club that he's been on in his time in St. Louis.
Yeah, the ERA with him 3.64, without him 4.21, and the team doesn't win as much. And that's why I say, you know, there's going to be some pressure on Carson Kelly, Dan, but I think there's pressure on the rest of the Cardinals team to make sure Carson doesn't feel all of that pressure to have to go out there and be Yadi. I mean, he's just got to do what he can do and be solid behind the plate, and other people are going to have to step up. You can't expect him to be exactly like Yadi. It's just too much to ask.
0-2 the count. Ehire Adrianza, switch hitter, shortstop. Carson Kelly just picked up his diploma. He finished up a college degree from Oregon State. 0-2 is spoiled. He promised his parents that he would do that. And he was on the caravan with me and actually was taking classes online and finishing up on the bus. And the 0-2 pitch. Struck him out. Second strikeout for John Gant. Missouri Lottery Foxtrex.
I believe this is the breaking ball from Gant, more of a curveball, 76 miles an hour. He throws it a little slower, and it is the curveball, and it hits that outside corner. I like watching the eyes of Carson Kelly light up. He could tell that pitch had the right spin to it and would be in the right particular place. This is interesting, Dan, watching Fernando Romero hit. Paul Molitor is thrilled for this moment. He said we bunted with him a little bit, but who knows what this guy can do. It's one of the crazy realities, according to Paul, of having to play interleague games. He's got a pitcher that has literally no experience hitting.
It's with a heavy heart that many of us came to the ballpark, learning the news of Gretchen Piscotty, the mother of Stephen Piscotty, who passed away this morning. Moment of silence before our first pitch tonight. And Stephen, we are thinking about you. You were all class here in St. Louis. Drafted by the Cardinals. Gretchen at many of the games here in St. Louis, and she'll be missed. Gretchen. Jerko, DeYoung, and Wong. Homer and a double last night for Jed Jerko. Jason Castro, normally the everyday catcher for Minnesota, another player that's out for the Twins.
Miguel Sano also out. We talked about Buxton earlier. And this is a team, Dan, that when they lose some of their top players, that hurts them a little bit more.
Well, as you mentioned, what a job by Paul Molitor guiding his team into postseason play a season ago. A strikeout, and there's that wipe away slider that he possesses.
I don't know how you hit this pitch when it's thrown perfectly. It's got a tight spin to it. And pitchers will talk about, Dan, and you know what it looks like, the little dot. It looks like a little dot on the ball when the slider is tight. And when the hitter sees that, he knows it's going to have a sharp break to it. And you want the dot to be bigger, but if it's a small little dot, that means it's got the perfect release point and spin, and probably going to be tough to hit.
Paul DeYoung, career high 3 walks last night. He is 0 for his last 15, but he does have 7 walks in that time frame. That's pulled just foul.
Not by much.
And the 0-2 is a base hit into right center. Cut off by Grossman, and DeYoung trots into second base with a 1-out double.
I can't remember a lot of Paul DeYoung hits, Dan, this year going in this direction, but I certainly remember them last year. Him driving the ball to right center. He has very good power the other way. And maybe this is a good sign for number 12.
A double on an 0-2 pitch, and now Colton Wong, who's hitting .222. And a strike on the outside corner. Thoughts and prayers for those in Hawaii. Colton's been talking about that here at the ballpark. He's going to try to raise as much money and awareness for those folks.
We've had a few of those moments already this year. Of course, we all know the devastation in Puerto Rico, and have been brought closer to that by Yadier Molina, and of course Stephen Piscotty's mom passing this morning that we talked about last inning, and now Colton Wong's connection to what's going on in Hawaii. There's some moments that players deal with.
Little flare hit down the left field line, and it's just foul.
Just a reminder, Dan, it's more than a game.
Sean Barber, the third base umpire, and a good call. Oh, and 2 on Colton Wong. Wong, such a feel and momentum type player, and has picked it up here recently in the walk-off homer. Some great defensive plays, all coming together here recently for him. 2-2. So Saturday and his walk-off homer. Only question was, would it stay fair? It did. 4 for 9 with a home run and 3 driven in. That's the lone triple for the Cardinals this season, as Hayward lost it, I guess, in the lights. Tied him up, struck him out. 2 in the inning, 4 in the game.
Again, the wipeout slider, this time down and in. You think it's a strike, but you can't hit it.
There's Carson Kelly, used as a pinch hitter last night. 21 games at Memphis, hit .234, a couple of home runs, and drove in 11. Carson, it was not a very good spring training for him. Penciled in to be the backup to Yadier Molina, got off to a slow start. I think what surprised most was that defensively he struggled too. Puts it in play, slowly hit to short. And the Cardinals strand a runner. Their second of the night. 2-0 after 2. Called a member of football's Hall of Fame. Congratulations. Welcome back to St. Louis.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it.
What did it mean going into the Hall of Fame?
Man, you know, it's still hard to feel like I belong there. You know, with all those greats, and you go down to Canton and you get a chance to meet some of these guys, and you're kind of in awe of the situation.
Yeah.
And I'm just humbled and honored to be a part of that group. And for me, it just expands the platform to be able to share the story and hopefully encourage and inspire other people to chase their dreams.
You're an amazing speaker. I've heard you speak a number of times just off the cuff. I'm curious, though, your speech at Canton was incredible. How often did you rehearse it, write it, think about it? What went into it?
You know, it took a lot of time, but it only took me about a month to write, but I took a number of months to kind of, you know, let it germinate in my mind.
Right.
Is what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And, you know, for me, being a man of faith, there's so much underneath even the words that were, you know, that people heard. I mean, people, heard words and took different things from it, but there was meanings underneath that stuff that I had in there. And that's, to me, what it was all about, is I wanted everybody to hear it and be able to take something from my story. And as you may have noticed, is that not really a single story happened after I made it to the NFL. Everything was before, and what really shaped the person that was able to accomplish the things on the football field. So all of that stuff, there was a lot of thought that went into it, just in making sure, because this is your one moment, and really your last shining moment when it comes to your platform in regards to football, that I wanted to make sure I did it right. And you may have to go back and listen to it 4 or 5 times to really get everything that I had in there. But there was a reason behind everything.
Do you miss playing the game?
Oh my gosh, come on. Any time you play at this level and you step away from it, and especially when you stay connected to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the hard part, is analyzing it and covering the games and doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, anytime you're around it, and especially I feel really, really good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think I could still play. I think I could still throw it. And so, especially when I cover the Super Bowl, when I go to the Super Bowl, I'm like, man, if I could just play in one more of these, that would be really great.
I brought it up because last time you were here, I said, well, did you ever think about going back? And you said, well, I was ready to, until your wife, Brenda, said, absolutely not.
Well, I tell you what, I was actually ready to for this coming season. I actually talked to a coach, and my wife said, go for it. I think it would be great. So I actually talked to a coach about possibly doing it if they needed someone, but then they went out and signed somebody. I don't think they thought I was serious, and so I think we're completely done now. But yeah, there's been times where, again, I don't know if I would ever really do it, because there's, it's easy to sit up here and go, oh, I feel great, I can throw it in my backyard, I could still play in the NFL. Yeah. I have too much respect for the game and those guys, but there has been moments where I was like, I feel so good, and I look at the state of the quarterback sometimes in the league, and I go, I think I could do it better than them if I could get back up to form and spend some time. So I'm just hoping that one team at some point gives me another 7-on-7 drill. Just give me 20 plays and let me see if I could still do it. That's probably the extent of what I'll have the rest of my life.
Well, I think we've all figured this out. Don't doubt you. Okay, so that's number one. And we may have breaking news here for the first ever guy that's just been inducted into the Hall of Fame now goes back and plays.
And that's what everybody asked me. They're like, well, if you were to do it, can you do that?
Right.
Can somebody come back after you've been in? I have no idea if they would even allow it. So, but it'd be fun to try, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. You got a little zip still going there.
There was a little. I haven't picked up a baseball in so long. I said my boys never played baseball, so I don't ever pick up a baseball and throw it around. So I didn't even get a warm-up throw, and so I get more nervous for that. On the football field, I know I can do that.
Right.
I get out here and I'm like, man, just don't pull a 50 cent and throw it into the dugout, or hit the mascot somewhere. I think Brady even bounced one at one.
He did.
And so it is so different than throwing a football that's my big concern and my worry is, just get it somewhere close, and so you look like a respectable athlete.
There's a high fly ball lifted out to center. That'll stay in the ballpark. Kurt Warner is our guest. Can we keep you for another half inning?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you, sir. 1-2-3. John Gant, 2-0 midway through 3. T-Mobile. One of the all-time greats in football history and St. Louis sports history is our guest, Hall of Famer Kurt Warner. There's a strike to John Gant. When I think back to your time in St. Louis, it was just such a magical time. What does St. Louis mean to you and your family?
I mean, it's hard to even put into words. I mean, and you know, to have it extend to this day, I think that's the crazy thing, is that, you know, when you're going good and you're winning the Super Bowl and all of that stuff, it's easy to think, oh, well, the fans are going to be behind you, and they supported us tremendously, and we always had a special place for them. But then you leave, and especially when you go to like a rival team,
right,
and you think, okay, love affair is going to stop, and it was great while it lasted. The most incredible thing is how they continue to open up their arms and support us in all the things that we do. And, you know, they ask you to come back for a night like tonight. And, you know, this is more than a decade we've been gone, and the people here, it feels the same. It feels like they love us just as much. We've got a special place in our heart. All the programs that we do through our foundation are bigger and better now than they even were when we were in the midst of this community. And so it's just hard to, you know, to speak to what these people have meant to us and what they continue to mean to us. And, you know, I think that to me is why, you know, I loved my time here so much, because the people were just incredible. And, you know, I came onto the scene and things went kind of crazy, and the people were so respectful and so supportive of who I was as a person and what we tried to do as a family and what we did with our foundation. You know, it's really what shaped us in the NFL and gave us that incredible experience. And so we love coming back. We never get to stay as long as we want. We never get to see all the people that were so instrumental. But it is special every single time, and we're grateful. And as long as people keep asking us to come back, we're going to try to continue to do as much as we can to help build this community and always be able to keep that relationship.
Is it tough to see what's happened with the NFL here in town?
It's always tough. You know, I mean, just from the personal standpoint, is that, you know, and once again, when I was here, it was the highlight. You know, I know when I came, it was a baseball town. And for a few years, we made this a football town.
No question.
And they took over. And so to see that fan base support the team like that, and to see the whole entire community come together when we won the Super Bowl, you're like, man, there was no place I'd rather play. I know there's some great sports cities out, but that was the, you know, the pinnacle of everything. And then obviously not the same success, you know, and some things kind of changed. And then as a business guy, you know, Stan going, well, I think I can have more success somewhere else. So you understand the business side of it. I think anybody that owns a business would say, okay, where do I feel like I can succeed? But just from a personal standpoint, because of the people, because I know how they support a team, of course I'm disappointed. And you know, and there's so many of us that only played for the Rams here in St. Louis.
Right.
And so I still, you know, I'll go out to LA when they ask me to come for this or that, and I don't feel like I'm connected to that organization there, because, you know, my whole career was here in St. Louis. So there will always be a special place, and it's always disappointing to come back here and know, you know, that the fan base doesn't get to show up in the Dome or wherever else and support a pro football team. That's disappointing, but at the same time, I'm going to try to continue to support the Rams the way I can, and the players. And that's always the hardest part, is that, you know, it's not the players' decision. They're going to play wherever, but it's easy to kind of get a little bitter taste in your mouth and not support those players that have meant a lot to this community, or just trying to do their best wherever the team is.
Do you tell others, and you have the NFL Network, and hopefully this will continue this inning, do you tell other people that are around the game, boy, you're missing the boat? St. Louis is a great sports town, and they will support football. It just got to be done in the right way.
No question. Yeah, I mean, you know, anytime you get that opportunity, and especially because of the move, you get a chance to say that. And, you know, the disappointing part is now they've lost a team twice.
Right.
And so, you know, your hope is that they get another opportunity, because they have been, like I said, I mean, you watch what they do here every single night for baseball. I saw what they did around the football team. Incredible sports town, and they deserve to have all the teams.
Awesome to have you back.
Thank you. Good
so
to see
well
you, man.
said. Kurt Warner, one of the all-time greats in St. Louis sports history. Showcased around the world as golf's strongest field competes in the 100th PGA Championship. Limited tickets remain for Monday's opening day through Thursday, the opening round. And don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. PGAchampionship.com for your tickets to Belle Reve. I could talk to Kurt Warner every day of my life and never get sick of it.
I love how positive he is, and certainly loved the way he represented the city of St. Louis, and so many things that you guys talked about. Just appreciate him feeling like this is still home in a football home for him. And it's kind of hard for him to experience that with obviously the team not being here, but that was a terrific conversation. Love Kurt Warner.
Well, that time in St. Louis was so special, not just with the football. Baseball was rolling too. They were starting to get things going. The Blues had won the President's Trophy as the best record in the regular season play. I mean, this was the place to be for sports. 18 of the last 21 pitches for Gant have been strikes, so he's starting to settle in here a little bit. But just the story, and we all know about it, from working overnights and grocery store to being a Hall of Famer. The addition of Marshall Faulk, the draft that included so many great players, including Orlando Pace. Dick Vermeil out of retirement. Mike Martz, the madman behind the offense. Isaac Bruce will be in the Hall of Fame. Torrey Holt was incredible. And that place got so loud down the street. I mean, it was just a madhouse.
Greatest show on turf. You had the Donut Brothers on the line, Adam Timmerman, Andy McCullum, good friends of mine that are still. Andy's certainly still around St. Louis. Adam has moved home, but he visits St. Louis quite a bit. So you get to see those guys occasionally, but it's not quite, again, the same. They're involved in NFL alumni things, but I just miss that connection with those great teams.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. 1 ball, 1 strike. It was emceeing a function at Ballpark Village on Thursday, I guess it was. And it was with top business leaders around the area. And Bill DeWitt was there. Mike Whittle, the general counsel of the team. And one of the prevailing thoughts in business and in sports is that if you don't have good ownership, it's real tough to win. It's tough to win in business. It's tough to win in sports, certainly. Ownership here has been remarkable since they took over in the mid-90s. Here's a 1-1 pitch. Popped up, left side. Jerko has room and makes the catch. It could not have been any worse, the ownership of Stan Kroenke here in St. Louis. It could not have been any worse. It's ridiculous. You can watch every out-of-market regular season game live or on demand, at home, in the office, MLB.tv.
Well, it does make you thankful for when you think about that juxtaposition of ownership for the Cardinal ownership, and how they try to put a good product on the field every season, and will spend money when they need to, and they'll try to make the fan experience good. I mean, that's part of it too, is the ballpark and the surroundings and just what does it mean to be a Cardinal fan? The affiliates.
I think of the Blues and Tom Stillman, local ownership, understands the history of hockey in town. It's a great fan experience to go to a Blues game.
Sure is.
And they spend to the cap. I mean, they put money in the product. I'm sure that's got to be frustrating, though, for Kurt Warner or Marshall Faulk, Orlando Pace. Their years were here. This is why they were Hall of Famers. Their time spent with St. Louis and the St. Louis Rams. And it's a disconnect to the ownership, or to the club, and the football team when they moved out of St. Louis. And a base hit into right center. Escobar on his way to third. Runners at the corners after the single by Grossman.
This pitch was not a bad pitch down in the zone. That had good movement to it. Grossman just went down to get a lot of left-handed bats in the lineup. Probably not a great mix for Gant to have so many lefties in there. But he has slowed down the pitch count a bit, as we've mentioned. Speaking of alumni, Danny, I understand Danny Cox is here at the ballpark tonight. That's another thing you get. You've got a place to go as a former player. 75 former Cardinal players living in St. Louis.
High fly ball. Deep left center. Bader at the wall. Just enough room. Run will score. Bader gets it back in quickly. It's 3-0 Minnesota. Few feet more on that fly ball. It'd be 5-0. And there's 2 away.
I think he thought he got it. I thought he got it. I'm glad he didn't get it.
So 2 outs. Adrianza, the switch hitting shortstop. And a base hit. Drops down the bunt and a beauty.
Well, it's a beautiful bunt, and the only value of that bunt, frankly, is it gets the pitcher through this inning.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that's the best baseball play. You hit a double there, don't you? That's the old saying. You get a guy on first base, the pitcher's up next. Tell the 8th place hitter, everybody starts chattering in the dugout, hit a double, because it's up to you to drive him in, because our pitcher probably won't. So you're basically saying we're not going to score, and I'm going to get my bunt base hit. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure that. I don't think that's the best baseball play. The only value again being you get through the pitcher spot here in the 4th.
Little bit low. I get what you're saying. Not a very good baseball play.
Or was it low?
By the way, the Dome was sold out for every game from their arrival until an 0-8 start. 0-8, 2007. Over 5 years, the Rams were 15-65. It's the worst run in NFL history for a 5-year period. And still fans came out to support that product. I'm just a little frustrated if you haven't
it's okay.
noticed.
I understand. I think you speak for an awful lot of fans.
Well, I just think the national perspective in looking at this was that, well, the city didn't support it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We should have people standing up and saying, no, 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 that's not the case. And there's the strikeout. That's 5 for Gant. Ozuna coming up. It's 3-0. MLB verified tickets until the first pitch or sell your extras to another fan. Get the StubHub app today. StubHub, official partner of the Cardinals. Marcelo Zuna. Boy, that slider is filthy.
And thinking about it even beyond that, if this guy is the real deal, and he sure seems like it, second big league start, won his first one. We talked about the numbers there, but he's just rolling right along. This rotation could be strong before it's over for the Minnesota Twins. Barrios is a top-notch guy. They've got Kyle Gibson, who's throwing well, Jake Odorizzi. And if Lance Lynn can be the Lance Lynn we know he is,
it's pretty good.
Just maybe things are a little rosier for Paul Molitor.
Irvin Santana.
Exactly.
And as we talked about right before the first pitch, the leader in the division is 500. So you're hanging around now, get healthier. This team could be one of the teams to beat. There's our old buddy Lance.
I think their bullpen will be an interesting question. Their bullpen has been hit and miss this year. They've either been great or terrible.
First 3-ball count since the first inning, and a walk to Carpenter. And a strikeout of Ozuna. Cardinals baseball is brought to you by the new Cholula Buttery Jack, part of the Buttery Jack family, only at Jack in the Box, and by Toyota. Let's go places. This could be a situation where a young man comes up to the big leagues and he pulls a Vince Coleman and says,
I belong here.
Going back down.
Right, exactly. I'm sure we'll hear that story from Vince at the Cardinal Hall of Fame, and maybe a few other stories from Vince.
I had forgotten. I knew you played with Vince, but I forgot that you played with Langford as well.
I did, very short period of time, but love Ray Langford. They're such different guys too, in terms of their personalities. I mean, Ray, I joked on the postgame, Danny. I don't know if you heard it. I joked that the minute they both found out that they were elected, I'm sure Vince was texting or calling Ray and begging for some of his minutes for the acceptance speech, because Ray probably doesn't want to talk more than 30 seconds and Vince wants to talk for 30 minutes. So be ready for that.
Hit sharply but positioned perfectly. Dozier.
But both of them terrific players.
Fantasy camp is a time in which, folks of all walks of life hopefully get the experience of what it's like to be a big leaguer. Part of that is that there's a lot of ribbing.
Yes.
And Ray Langford was at fantasy camp, and you were pretty tough on him,
yeah,
you said, during his time in 1990.
Yeah, I actually saw him at fantasy camp, and I had told him when he first came up to the big leagues, I remember a couple of things that I did that were kind of what you do to young players, and a little bit of showing them that they're young and you can be confident, but don't forget that you don't know a lot yet. And that's not done anymore, but it was done. And the more I thought about it, I went to Ray at fantasy camp and I said, I feel a little bad about some of those things that I did. I said, I'm sorry, I probably kind of went over. And he stopped me and he said, no. He said, all of what you guys did for me was helpful to me in my growth as a big leaguer, and I'm grateful for it. And so it got rid of my guilt, number one, but it also shows how important your teammates, and he knew, and the message I got from him was he knew that we cared about him, not that we were just trying to put him down. And that's the key. If you're gonna be hard on somebody, don't lose them. And he was thick-skinned enough to not be lost and to become a terrific player.
The 2-1, a base hit into left for Paul DeYoung, and he's 2 for 2.
A double to right, and now a single to left for DeYoung. been on a bit of a bad streak the last 3 games, but swinging it here tonight.
I think anytime you see him go to right, and when he caught my attention, spring training 2 years ago, wind blowing in Jupiter, already a tough ballpark to hit one out of, and he hit one to right center. I thought, wow. Colton Wong at the plate. Jim has more. Jimmy.
Yeah, Colton playing some of his best baseball as his thoughts are with the people devastated by the Kilauea volcano eruption in Hawaii. He's from an area about 20 miles away from one of the hardest hit areas, Leilani Estates on the Big Island. Colton told me there's no lava insurance, so these people are losing everything. Their houses are gone, their possessions are gone, their cars are gone. Colton has set up a GoFundMe account to try to help. www.gofundme.com/Hawaii Natural Disaster Relief. Dan Colton told me he wants to try to help them get something back.
It's good stuff, and obviously a very sad situation there as he taps one to first. Mauer steps on the bag, and we're through 4. 3-0. Twins on top. And then the manager, who's still in uniform, Paul Molitor. I don't think people really realize how good he was. Over 3,300 hits, over 500 steals.
He was a game changer, no question about it. And played a long time. And a little surprised that he became a manager. I just felt like he would just kind of move on. I know he liked to be a leader. I spent a lot of time with Paul. Dan, you and I talking about it before the game today, and I did visit with Paul some prior. We were on the negotiating team together for some of the union issues. Paul was the most respected guy in the Players Association, among the leaders of the Players Association. So if there was a question, everybody would kind of ultimately want to know what Paul thought, and he had just a calming way about him, which I guess is really one of the great things he's bringing to the position of manager. He's just he's very even keeled, doesn't get too upset about things, but thinks through solutions, and again is very well respected by everybody.
Cretin Durham Hall High School, the Twin Cities. That's where Paul Molitor went, and so did Joe Mauer. And Joe Mauer was a USA Today Player of the Year in 2 sports. Played QB in football, obviously great baseball player, and was a very good basketball player as well. Hits it sharply to short. There's DeYoung, and he makes the play. Want to buy or sell tickets at the last minute? Get the StubHub app. And that's all at StubHub. And a reminder as well, we have the Bob Gibson pitching rubber. That's Friday, May 18th. There's a look at that pitching rubber to commemorate 1.12, 50 years ago. There's Brian Dozier. He's 0 for 2.
78 pitches for Gant. Some action in the Cardinal bullpen in terms of stretching. Nobody throwing yet, but Gant's up second next inning. We were hoping he could get at least 5, maybe 6. It looks like the way the game is moving around, it's going to be 5 because they're going to need to hit for him.
His first inning, he had 32 pitches. So that was the one that really backed him up in a corner, and now he's up to 80 with this next pitch. I don't know. I'll play devil's advocate with you. Mike Matheny, while it would be, you know, in theory, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
You pinch hit in that spot, go to your bullpen as you start to get a little later in the game. But your bullpen, we talked about that. It's been used a ton here the last 2 to 3 days. And your bench limited a little bit too with in question Tommy Pham. And the catch made by Bader for out number 2.
Well, I think it's definitely a debate. It's definitely something that's going on right now in the conversation and even the conversation before the game with Mike Matheny and Mike Maddox. How many innings do we have? That's where you have to start. What's the most you have? And you know, if you go past 13 or 14, then you kind of hope Jed Jerko has good stuff for 3 or 4 innings. You just have to deal with it, and you worry about tomorrow, which, by the way, isn't really a full day away. It's only a half day away with the day game. So I would guess that the Cardinals wouldn't be afraid to throw a couple of relievers long and then brings up somebody tomorrow.
That's pulled foul. After the bad first inning, he's retired 12 of the last 15. That was the bullpen last night. You see all the names there at the bottom. Mike Myers is no longer even here. Myers had 46 pitches. Sam Tuivailala 29.
The thing you have to look for is 3 of those innings were thrown by the guy that's not here. So only 2/3 of an inning by Gregerson. He could go 2 today. Lyons probably not in my mind because he's thrown 3 days in a row already. I wouldn't think you'd want to go 4. Holland threw an inning only, so he could probably go, but that would be 3 days in a row for him. So you have to, again, take your best shot. And one of the things you do is you go up to the guy during batting practice and say, how is it? How do you feel? Because pitcher has to tell you. He's the one that knows that it's barking or I can go, I feel great. And that's where the reliever has to be honest.
Bader broke back, now races in and makes the catch. And a 1-2-3 for Gant here in inning number 5. Our question is pretty easy. Gant's on deck and nobody throwing in the Cardinals pen yet. So they're going to get at least one more inning out of him. He's had 86 pitches on the night.
I think one of the other factors you have in your mind is this pitcher's pretty filthy right now. So do you feel like you really got a good shot at him here at this part, or do you save your best weapons for the bullpen? I'm talking about weapons off the bench.
Oh, Kelly hit by the pitch.
That's a painful way to start a rally.
It was 96 miles per hour.
96. Right in the left arm. Is it shoulder? No, it's in the back.
Yeah. Ouch. This is where you'd like to think that in interleague play, National League Park, National League team might have an edge where, you know, we've seen it before. There are sometimes pitchers haven't picked up a bat in years. And Gant in this spot is asked to bunt.
0 for 11 in his big league career. Not a lot of opportunities to hit.
Gets the bunt down. And Romero will go to Dozier covering the bag at first. I wonder when guys like Paul Molitor or some of the American League managers get a taste of National League style managing, if they say, you know what, I really like this.
Well, you know, it's interesting because Paul did not say it, but he implied that it's frustrating for him to play interleague games the way it is now. That's not to say that he doesn't like the style, but he's forced to not play Logan Morrison, one of his guys. He can't find a spot for him because he's got Maurer playing first, which is what Morrison would be playing. And he's got a pitcher that doesn't know what he's doing with the bat in his hand, is basically what he said. He said, well, I just find it to be, thinking of his right words that he said, it's a difficult challenge to have to deal with.
Very politically correct.
Oh yeah, and Paul's going to be respectful about it, but I think it's frustrating, clearly, for American League managers. They have to go without one of their top hitters on a team built for that.
Got to the point that Logan Morrison was even taking fly balls. You know, he hasn't played, I don't think, defensively at least, a major league game since 2015 in the outfield.
And he took fly balls again today. And Paul said that he's a choice, but he's not the first choice. but I appreciate the fact that he's working at it, and he could do it. But, you know, again, just not ideal.
Here's the 0-2 now to Carpenter, who has walked and struck out. And a strikeout of Carpenter. And that's 8 tonight for Fernando Romero.
Well, Matt thought he was able to hold up this swing. They called it on the swing, and the home plate umpire right on top of that. He didn't call it a strike. He said he swung at it.
Here's Harrison Bader. "13 strikeouts now for Romero in 9 2/3 to begin his big league career. That's pretty impressive. Bader struck out looking in the first and also a base hit.
So where are the 23-year-old nerves and inexperience and kind of cluelessness? Well, it's not there. You mentioned the top pitching prospect for the Twins, 66th prospect going into spring training this year in all of baseball. Those other 65 should be pretty good then.
Real good. Makes me think that the Cardinals at some point getting Alex Reyes back in it. That'll either be in the tail end of this month or early June. The role still to be determined. Up and in. 3-1. Fowler on deck.
Be very surprised if Reyes was not a starter.
You think so?
Yeah.
You know, part of the equation too is that the Cardinals have to figure out how to get him innings. You know, they have a.
That's one of the reasons.
A little, you know, thought of how many innings he has to get to, because he will be a starter next year. So you want to build him up.
You don't want a limited starter going into next year because you didn't use him enough this year when you were able to, and that's certainly one of the reasons. The other is, I think relieving is harder on your arm than starting, because of what you have to do and how often you have to throw and how often you have to get hot and how quickly you have to get hot.
So a walk, and now the tying run comes to the plate. Nurse's night returns in 2018. Mitch Smith, who is helping us up here in the booth, has been requesting, well, I'd say at least 100 tickets for this. Nurse's night, and you could choose from the day game. It's tomorrow, or the night game on May 21st. Either way, with a purchase of a special themed ticket, you'll receive an exclusive Cardinals scrub jacket. That's right, the scrub jacket. It can be yours tomorrow or May 21st, Cardinals.com/theme.
Does Dexter have another big moment in him, or is he out of him?
Almost hit a 2-run homer in the first inning. He was robbed by Eddie Rosario, and we both thought it would have been a home run. It was right at the top of the wall.
On Saturday, we certainly remember the Colton Wong walk-off that came in the 10th. But do you remember Dexter Fowler's at bat in the 9th inning? He backed up the right fielder Hayward to the wall in the 9th inning of that particular game, very nearly having a walk-off. Home run in that one.
1-2. This clearly has been his best side of the plate to start the year. Did not learn to switch it until he was drafted by the Rockies, and this is not his natural side.
He was slow right-handed last year also, and then got better.
And the 1-2 misses in. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The 2-2.
Well, Dan, you don't need it all here in the 5th inning, but you'd like to pick up something. With Kelly in scoring position.
And a fly ball lifted out to shallow right. And the catch made. Cardinals strand a pair. And we played 5. Every match live and over 300 hours of coverage. World's biggest sporting event begins June 14th on Fox and FS1. 3-0 our score. John Gant back out for the 6th. That's up and in. Carson Kelly was hit by a pitch. His back at 96 miles an hour. That might be John Gant saying, "I have your back, Mr. Kelly."
Yes, and almost his. I believe that Escobar felt like that was the intent, and I wouldn't argue with him.
Me neither. How many times did you see in your playing career a player, position player, either come up to you or a teammate and say, "You better take care of this. You better do something about our guy getting hit"?
There was always general chatter about it, but never, I mean, I can't remember anybody specifically saying it to me other than a coach once that just said, "You know what to do."
It was kind of an unwritten rule,
Yeah.
right? Guys knew.
Well, you don't want to, there's a little bit of deniability.
Right.
Where were you on the night of the 12th?
You don't want the track record of that one, right?
I didn't say that.
We didn't talk about that. There's a leadoff walk.
I was told that, and I did see something that made me, you know, we were, all of us in the bullpen weren't happy about it, and the coach told me, "You saw that, didn't you?" And I said, "Yep." He goes, "You know what to do?" And I said, "Yep."
And did you do it?
"Oh, yep."
You're very agreeable tonight.
Well, it's easy to be agreeable with your coach when he's one of the guys that helped promote you to be in the big leagues in the first place. So he was the right guy to deliver that message.
Gotcha. Mention how this bullpen of the Twins has been hit and miss to the tune of a 5.56 ERA. That's 29th in all of baseball. So some way, somehow, you've got to get Romero out of this game and see what you can do against that bullpen. The Cardinals, by the way, they're 7th bullpen ERA, right around 3.5. Matt Bowman has begun to throw for St. Louis. Now, a lot of that damage done against the Twins, that was earlier in the year. Really poor weather. It's gotten better here recently.
I don't know that you could throw out the first month statistics, but it's going to be a little skewed, I think, after the season's over. We'll look back at some things and say, I can't believe Lance Lynn walked a guy an inning for the month of April. That doesn't, and there are other guys like that.
0-2 the count on Rosario. 2-out RBI double back in the first.
It would be a shame for Gant to hit for himself in the 5th and not be able to get through the 6th.
That would not be how you draw it up. And that may happen here. 94 pitches on the night, and the 1-2 pitch. And a fly ball lifted out to center field. Bader backs up. And gets it right back in again. Yeah, I meant to do that. Forget going to second base. I need to get it back to my pitcher. Rob Manfred said we got to have this pace of play thing.
Speed up rule.
You haven't seen that very often, have you?
Never.
The Rawlings Kids Glove is coming up, and that's May 20th. Really nice glove for the kids. Bring them on out to the ballpark, and that'll be Sunday, May 20th.
Certainly a message was sent to the Minnesota Twins that may not know whether the center fielder has a good arm or not.
He just showed it. I don't think I've ever seen that.
I can't recall myself. I mean, he missed the cutoff guy and the trailer, and went ahead and threw to the second trailer. He's smiling about it
a little bit now.
Wasn't that what we talked about in the Open? You have to smile about things in this game.
That's
I mean,
right.
you can be so serious about this, Danny, that you worry yourself out of the game.
Somewhere, Rob Manfred. Oh, yeah. Nodding in approval. I like that. September of 2016. Gant threw a career high 113 pitches. He was with the Braves then. And he's at pitch number 97 here. The fly ball lifted out to right. Fowler back near the wall. And it's off the wall. Relay to the plate is not in time. And the Cardinals will take a closer look at that. Boy, what a throw on both ends here. Bader.
This is again Bader and the strong arm, and DeYoung another strong arm. Close play. I don't know. I'm thinking he might have been. Nope, there he is on the left hand. He has the back part of the plate. It's a good call.
No challenge from the Cardinals, and Gant will not get through 6. And Matt Bowman coming on when we come back.
The ball was hit, and I think the Cardinals thought that they would have no shot at getting the runner out at home, so they were all set up to go to third base, but he had a bad jump, so the close play at the plate would have been closer had they had a more direct line on the relay to home. But I believe they thought that Escobar would have scored easily on a ball hit that deeply to right center, so they were just assuming the throw would go to third. Natural thought.
Sure. Here's Bobby Wilson. It's fouled back. 1 ball and 1 strike. It's our Chevy call to the pen. You can see that Escobar thought that ball was going to be caught by Fowler too, so he had to kick it in gear to score. That's fouled back.
Cardinals have had so many of these fun wins early this year, and we're seeing if they have another one up their sleeve tonight. Coming back. 2-2.
I think brewing for the Cardinals if Matt Bowman is able to get through this inning, and we hope he can keep this close. 4-0. Cardinals get something going in the bottom of the 6th. They may have to pinch hit for him, which means a guy that potentially could go multiple innings for you is only going to go 2/3.
Strikeout of Wilson. And there's 2 away here in the top of the 6th.
I love this movement from Matt Bowman down in the zone. Wilson thinks it's outside and it cuts back. Good sinking action. Well framed by Carson Kelly.
Intentional walk to Adrianza, and it'll bring in Romero with 2 runners on. Romero has struck out twice. Talked to a former big league catcher over the weekend, and he said he had never seen anything like what Molina dealt with on Saturday. So I've never seen, you know, guys get hit. It's part of the job, but I've never seen it that bad. He said being a former catcher, it was painful to watch. He said, I felt awful for him. And then we started a conversation about foul tips in the balls that catch a mask, and he said there's no question I had multiple concussions, and I'm not talking about Mike here, but
he knows the feeling too.
Yes. The strikeout of Romero.
Well, we wish Yachty the best in his recovery.
Families.
How about Fernando Romero here tonight?
Well, he has been nasty. A lot of strikeouts, some of them caught looking. Fastball and slider both have been sharp, and he's been down in the zone. A lot of bad swings over top of pitches that you just can't hit, but he disguises them well. He's throwing them at the knees, and then he's getting that late movement, and he's doing it with Outstanding velocity.
A strike to Ozuna. Marcelo for 2. 8 strikeouts on the night for Romero. You have to think the best is yet to come from the Cardinal left fielder.
I think so. It's a long season. We're a little bit more than a fifth of the way through the season. A lot of at-bats.
You know what I find really interesting, and you're right, just past 20% done of the regular season. The Nationals, Cubs, and Dodgers are 4th place teams.
That's one of the big surprises in this game.
Clayton Kershaw went on the DL. Dodgers did, though, have a no-hitter combined with 4 different pitchers. They played in Mexico. And it's a walk to Ozuna. 3rd walk issued by Romero.
Well, what you hope with Romero is that his time will be over soon, and you get to the bullpen, which has not been a good part of the Twins team so far in 2018, except for small places. And so the Cardinals couple the struggles of the Twins bullpen with their positive feeling they've had late in games lately, and maybe something good will happen. But I'd like to see this guy out.
Crowd has been quiet tonight.
Nice crowd.
Over 40,000 in terms of tickets sold. Not too bad for still school in session, a Monday night, and it's not a premier opponent in Minnesota. But this club has been fun to watch. Here's a 1-1. Trevor Hildenberger, one of 6 righties in their pen. They carry 2 lefties, and that includes the former Cardinal Zach Duke.
Closer is Fernando Rodney, who Paul Molitor says can throw 3 days in a row without a problem, more so than any of his pitchers.
He's been around forever.
Maybe that's one of the reasons.
2-1 pitch. Ooh, Jerko was on that pitch.
So Dan, think about all the pitches he's thrown in this game. And I can't remember another pitch that I thought, wow, that was a good pitch to hit, other than that last one.
Nothing's been over the middle of the plate.
Nothing.
The 2-2.
So 88 good pitches and 1 bad one.
DeYoung at the on-deck circle. And a little chopper and a double play ball. And Romero fortunate that he didn't field it. Went for it.
He did try. Well, I wish it would have hit off his glove. It didn't. He jumped for it, but it went right to Dozier, who was right on the bag, and things just not going the Cardinals' way so far.
Well, DeYoung, a couple of hits. He has 2 of the 3 for the Cardinals. Rest of the lineup is 1 for 16. DeYoung, a double to right center and a base hit, a single to left. Inside, 2 balls and no strikes. Cubs with a 9-2 lead in their game. Mets have defeated Cincinnati 7-6. For the Reds, and here we are, I mentioned it at the top, but only 8 wins on the year. Reds are now 8-27.
You mentioned the Mets. They've lost 6 straight games going into today. Only 2 of their last 10, and they've kind of dropped out. Atlanta's taken over in the East, and Philadelphia, one of the surprise teams, in second place at the moment.
The strikeout of DeYoung, and that's 9 tonight. For the Cardinals, Carlos Martinez, you take away his opener, Citi Field, this guy's been maybe the best in baseball.
He's been lights out since then. He has really gotten tremendous focus. That's a word that Mike Matheny uses with him, and he's using that himself now, Carlos is. And he knows that when he's got that focus and he's kind of locked in, that good things happen. He has tremendous stuff. The cutter, Dan, is just another weapon, as if he needed another one.
There's Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer, the only catcher. He's now playing first base or DH, but at the time, the only catcher to win 3 batting titles in the history of the game. I mean, think about how hard it is just to win a batting championship, and then to do it at arguably the most demanding position in the sport. Your hands are getting beat up. Obviously, long, hot days behind the plate. It's an amazing accomplishment. The 1-1.
One of the other conversations I had with Molitor today, they're going to face the Angels when they leave St. Louis, and Ohtani. And we were both talking about how do you prepare when you're Ohtani, when you go to the hitters meetings, you go to the pitchers meetings. I mean, you've got this extra challenge, but the reality is what you said about a catcher is true all the time for them, because they need to be involved in both all the time.
That's why catchers are prevalent now in terms of being managers in the game.
Absolutely.
Mauer is 0 for 3 with a walk and a run scored.
And relief pitchers spend most of the game and most of their lives telling stories in the bullpen. And that's why there's such a prevalence of relief pitchers in broadcasting.
Yeah, there's some truth to that too. You guys had fun out there, didn't you?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
Now if you had thin skin and you're in a bullpen.
But you had to be quick-witted too, because you had to be fast. There were some funny dudes in the bullpen.
There's Colton Wong. Boy, that's got to frustrate you if you're Brian Dozier. He just did what you're taught to do as a little guy.
Take the ball up the middle.
Take the ball up the middle. Hit it hard.
They may have to change that advice, because there's a guy standing up the middle. You hit it up the middle, and
It
there's
couldn't
Colton
be any
Wong.
more up the middle.
Nope.
And Dozier is 0 for 4. And here's Max Kepler, and now a shift on for Kepler. Now, if you're seeing this shift and you're Kepler or Carpenter or Rizzo or Matt Adams, don't you practice at trying to just drop down bunts, just poke the ball the other way? I mean, you've got to, right?
Well, yes, 100%. But it's also situational, Dan. With 2 outs, nobody on. The Cardinals are betting that Kepler, who's a third-place hitter and has a little pop, is going to be more of a potential danger to hit a home run. So if he hits the ball the other way, that's probably not going to happen. Or if he bunts, clearly he won't. So it's almost like you think of times where Matt Adams was in situations to bunt, and you'd say, well, I don't really want him bunting here. I want him to try to
And I get it. You're right.
Yeah, and so but I think 100% true in general that I think in the game we need to teach guys to hit against the shift better than we're doing.
Here's a 1-2. And he lines it over to Young and into center field. A 2-out base hit, his second hit of the night. And it brings in Escobar. Plaza Tire Service, Fox Tracks.
It was a changeup that was a little flat. Didn't have the downward movement as much as it did sideways movement, so a little bit more hittable.
Escobar struck out first time up. And a base hit to right. And walked and scored.
You know, Dan, the spray charts that teams use now that are certainly what we call the advanced metrics, the sabermetrics, the detailed spray charts, they're all computer driven at the moment. But it's not as if they weren't always used. I mean, they were used 40 years ago. And you would have a spray chart that would all be for pitchers of your type also. So when you look at a spray chart defensively, and you could say, well, Matt Carpenter always hits the ball on the right side. Well, what about guys that left-handers that throw sliders? What does he do? Or what about right-handers that throw hard? Or so it's not just the spray chart. It's, to me, it's the broken down spray chart to pitchers like you. So Matt Bowman is not the same as Jordan Hicks, for example. And guys aren't going to hit the ball the same spots off those two guys.
As a young fan, I was able to go to the ballpark and sit directly behind home plate for a game. Right behind home plate at Busch Stadium 2, where the umpires would come out and the grounds crew was in there too. And I was amazed as a young fan seeing Danny Cox charting. He was the next day starter, and there he was charting pitches.
That's what you would do.
Yeah. There's a strikeout for Bowman. And it's time to stretch. Times have changed. $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Missouri. Trevor Hildenberger, a right-hander, is into the ballgame now for Minnesota. And that's a good thing for the Cardinals, as Romero is done, struck out 9 and 6 and gave up just 3 hits.
Interesting, the numbers for Hildenberger aren't bad, 3.77 ERA, but better against lefties than righties, and he's a guy that throws from the side. That's very opposite in my mind, because normally those guys are the guys that have that sweeping breaking ball that right-handers can't hit, but left-handers can see coming into them.
Last 12 games for Colton Wong, 333 and 6 extra base hits. So starting to pick it up as he plays a little bit more.
And he's playing more as he's picking it up more. That's kind of how it works.
Good off speed pitch there and had him out in front.
That's why he's tough on lefties. The changeup. You'll throw it more to lefties than you will righties, and he sells it well. Hildenberger, 4 years in the minor leagues, had a career minor league ERA of 1.57. So I would say, what took him so long?
No kidding.
Cal Berkeley product. Pitched with the Twins last year at the big league level, and clearly a strike thrower.
Here's Carson Kelly. Greg Garcia at the on deck circle. And a little bouncer hit to short. Kelly retired 0 for 2 tonight, and it brings in Greg Garcia. Mentioned that our thoughts are with Stephen Piscotty and the passing of his mother Gretchen. I put a feature on my Twitter feed, Rick, and it's one of the most beautiful, gut-wrenching, incredible pieces I've seen on an athlete. And his mother was suffering from ALS, and if anybody gets the time, go find it, watch it. It's just an incredible piece, and it just maybe tells a little bit more of the story of why Stephen was struggling here in St. Louis. And wonderful that Billy Beane and John Mozeliak could pull off a deal to let him return home. But it's an incredible piece.
I'm glad you put it on Twitter and posted it, and I've had multiple people tell me today, just seeing him around town, every place, that's something I need to say. I missed it live, so I'll certainly watch it, and certainly our prayers and thoughts are out there for the entire Piscotty family and friends.
8-pitch inning for Hildenberger.
happen, Budweiser will be there. By Barnes Jewish Hospital and Washington University physicians, national leaders in medicine. And by Ford, going further so you can. Along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Jim Hayes is here as well. Cardinals trailing 4-0. So Chevy Cole to the pen. Ryan Sheriff. Eddie Rosario at the plate. 2-out RBI double into the corner in right field back in the first inning. He is popped out and flied out. Rosario with that double extended his hitting streak to 8 games.
You know, Dan, one thing I've just been thinking about the way the game is going, to where teams, the Dodgers did it last year, the Cardinals are doing it this year, other teams are doing it, whether you're using your AAA team, you're using the disabled list, you're using your roster to shuffle guys in and out. If you're going to do that, it makes more sense to develop relievers who are going to throw 2 or 3 innings or more. That way you can get the 2 or 3 innings from them, send them out, and have a fresh bullpen the next day.
That's a great point.
If you're just talking about 1 inning, everybody's a 1 inning guy, it's a little harder to manage that. I think you're maximizing that extra group of pitchers that you have down in AAA if you stretch everybody out.
So let me ask you this then. Are you better off going to your AAA team and maybe going to the rotation to bring guys up and work them in a bullpen? Now, I realize there's some complicated issues with that. And
that would be certainly a possibility
yeah.
in some cases. And I think for a guy like Gant, that would certainly be a possibility. He's been a reliever.
He's the one I was thinking
of.
The
guys who are more creatures of habits, maybe have been starters their whole career, like let's say Ponce de Leon or Flaherty. I'm not sure that would be in their, or Gomber even.
Yeah.
It would be in their best interests maybe, and you'd have to hit the right day every time, because they're pitching every 5th day, so their rest is a little bit more organized, I would say.
If you're a championship club, there's the next era, if you will, the pitching staff that's down in Memphis.
Pretty good numbers, by the way.
Pretty good team,
I'll say.
There's a fly ball out to right. Fowler won't get there. And it's a leadoff double for Rosario. The point I was going to make is that you probably need 20 to 25 pitchers at some point through the course of a 6 to 7 month season. That's not far-fetched to say you'll use that many.
Right.
You agree with that?
Yes. And not to confuse the issue further, but something that is also a factor is who's on the roster and who's not. So you could almost say we could do that with AA players too. AA relievers, train them to throw 2 or 3 innings and have them ready, have them pitching in Springfield, get them on the same little ferry boat back and forth here.
Little excuse me swing and a base hit into right. The run will score, and it's 5-0 Minnesota. It's a 3-hit night for Robbie Grossman. Sometimes you see big blasts that we use as the Nissan drive of the game, and those towering home runs and walk-offs. Well, tonight, folks, you get this.
Drives it to right. That's what he does. And that was a bit of an excuse me swing, but productive, and a good night for Grossman.
2 singles and an RBI double and an RBI single.
But the point about not being on the roster, you can't call up a player if he's not on the 40-man roster. That's the list of protected players, and the Cardinals roster is full. So if there's somebody who's pitching well in AA, let's say, who's not a roster player, and he can help you, somebody else has to go off. (2-0) on Bobby Wilson.
and it's 3-0. So Sheriff has come in, allowed the double and a single. And has gone to 3-0. There's a strike. Our crowd tonight, 40,182, 40182.
Sheriff went 2 innings 2 days ago on Saturday. So when you go 2 innings, you'd like to get 2 days off if you can get them, but not working that way with all the extra innings the Cardinals have been playing.
The 3-2 pitch, runner goes, and it's under the glove of Jerko. That slowed the ball down. It's off the sidewall. And Ozuna, no throw, just back into Jerko, run scores. And the Twins have added to their lead to make it 6-0.
Sheriff had to throw a strike just under the glove, as you mentioned. And by knocking it down, that allows Grossman to score from first base. And I think Sheriff's going to be in here for a while. There's some action going on in the Cardinals pen right now. But again, not a lot of. This is not situational pitching at the moment. You're not thinking about lefty, righty, lefty, righty. You're thinking about who's available. And that's another thing that happens when you have pitchers that have to go 2 innings. You can't afford to have a specialist, in my mind, if you're going to be doing that. And maybe one lefty specialist, but the more guys that can go 2 or 3 innings, it just makes your bullpen. It's almost like having a guy on your bench that plays multiple positions. You want your relievers to be able to get multiple guys out if they can.
It was the 5th double hit by the Twins tonight. Yeah, we talked about it a lot, and you and I would go back and forth all the time off the air about a lefty specialist.
Right.
You tell me, Dan, well, you got this, that. Okay, I got it. And then we brawl a little bit. It happens. And there's a hit by pitch.
A little bit. But that's part of the fun of this game. Everybody that watches baseball, comes to the ballpark, talks about it at work or wherever you might be. You know, you're going to have opinions about things. That's what makes the game interesting. If I were doing it, I would do this. I would do that. I'd have played this guy. Here's my lineup. I mean, that's part of the fun of this in my mind. It's okay to have opinions, Dan, and just want to make sure you're hearing mine. That's all.
Oh, loud and clear.
So the specialist issue that we talk about is it's nice to be able to get the right-hander out in the middle of 2 lefties. Because if you're only getting 1 lefty out, then they got to bring in another lefty. Then you got to have 2 left-handed specialists.
Trevor Miller was a good one here in town. Randy Chode at times. And he struggled at the tail end, obviously. This is Ryan Lamar. Zipchinski was more of a guy that could get both lefties and righties out. You may see roster shuffling after tonight's game again too. It's kind of what you're talking about.
I would be very surprised if we don't. Tell you a guy who I'd like to see more of. Well, I'd like to see more of Mike Myers, but he pitched 3 innings yesterday, so the move makes sense to send him out. But John Brebbie is a guy that's deserved another shot.
Brebbia really saved, in many ways, the bullpen a year ago.
Sure did. He and Tyler Lyons both.
Yeah. As Brebbia came from nowhere, made an appearance in Colorado, and None of us really knew about him either. That was the odd thing. We knew a move was coming, and you heard John Brebby, and you're like, what? Who's that guy?
Remember when he came up, there were 3 or 4 people that named you. Oh, they're going to bring up a pitcher. Well, is it this guy's? No. Oh, they're bringing up John. What?
Right.
Who? He must be in AA. It's like, no, he was in AAA. It's like, well, where'd he come from?
Because normally we'd see those guys in spring training.
Of course.
2-2 the count on Ryan Lamar. And a fly ball into left center that drops. It's cut off by Bader. The relay to the plate is in time. The tag is there. I think that's another good example of the Cardinals being cautious with the arm of Ozuna. That's his ball, but Bader, to his credit, hustling over and starting the relay.
So he gives way to Bader on purpose. Bader throws one on the money to DeYoung, and I think they sent the runner because they thought Ozuna was going to be the one to catch that. And I believe that's why they were a little more aggressive than perhaps they should have been, trying to score on that base hit.
It looks safe to me, by the way. Paul Molitor said, nah, forget it.
Wait one more pitch. Danny, you know you're supposed to say that right now.
Well, the TV screen doesn't lie. That's like when you're on radio, you're doing a game, and as you well know, you can make a routine pop-up in shallow right. There's a blast out to right field. He might get it. And it is caught near the track. But on TV, you can't do that.
You can't. Nope. You can't. You can only fool some of the people some of the time.
That's
on
right.
TV. I had one of those in Washington, as you know, doing play-by-play. A very difficult ballpark because it's so high. I said there was a deep drive, and it ended up being caught by the shortstop. And my next statement was, the wind is really blowing in tonight in our nation's capital.
I was working with Mike Shannon, and I had one of those type of plays at Wrigley Field. And I told Mike, I said, hit your cough button. And for fans who don't know, cough button will cut your microphone going out to the crowd. And Mike, in so many words, said, don't even worry about it. It happens all the time. You kidding me? You're fine.
He's a treasure.
Yes, sir. Had dinner with Mike tonight.
Did you?
Yep. And that's a treasure in itself.
Of course it is.
We were talking about the schedule and late nights in baseball. And he said, essentially, once you're in it like we have been for a long time, you get used to it. It's just part of the beast. He said, but you ask an average fan to go travel around in late nights and the crazy schedule that we keep. He said, boy, they could be worn out. I said, Mike, you realize you never sleep? He said, that's different, Dan. Don't worry about that. The Moon Man.
Well, I told you that was our key to the game. Sleep is overrated, right?
Right. In quotes.
In quotes.
You can always change it if it's in
well,
quotes.
I mean, and it was meant to be somewhat sarcastic because obviously sleep does matter. But for a player, you have to mentally kind of just accept it. That's part of the deal.
Strikeout of Mauer. And Mauer's saying, okay, one of them I get, but that's 2 of them that were outside and out of the strike zone. It's the first batter that Sheriff has retired. Remember, the other out was on a base hit. I had the chance to visit with Joe Mauer a couple of springs ago, Ricky, and I mean to tell you, he is one classy guy.
Big numbers, too, in a Twins uniform.
Yep.
You mentioned the batting titles, but a favorite for a long, long time in Minnesota.
I had traveled to Fort Myers specifically to go see him. I was helping out Mike Matheny on his website, and getting various players to talk about what they do on the field, off the field. And then we talked about baseball for 20 minutes. And I mean, he could not have been any nicer in trying to express himself in the importance of getting young people in the game. And you can imagine he's a hometown hero, first overall pick. Remember, he was ahead of Mark Pryor. And a lot of folks thought, well, what are you doing? Why are the Twins taking Joe Mauer? And obviously it's a pick that worked out.
Sure did.
Here's an 0-2 pitch to Brian Dozier. And he hits it in the air to Dexter Fowler. And he'll make the catch. Transmitted in any form, and the count and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. This is Matt McGill, fourth appearance of the year. Cardinals have the top of the lineup. Carpenter walked and has struck out twice. It's been a very quiet night for the Cardinals.
Sure has. Not a big book on McGill, Dan. The Cardinals did face him 2 Septembers ago when he was with the Cincinnati Reds. He spent all last year in the minor leagues, originally property of the Dodgers.
Carpenter now 2 for 20 in the leadoff spot this year. So much debate about that, with his overall numbers being so good as a leadoff man.
And those are things he kind of disputes too. He'll say, look, when I'm swinging well, it doesn't really matter where I am in the order. Happens to be that I've been in that first spot when I've been swinging well, as opposed to because I'm in the first spot. That's his answer to it. And of course, people have been debating that, and I'm not sure there's ever a definitive answer to it.
By the way, congratulations to you.
Uh-oh, what did I do?
No, this weekend you'll be reuniting with your former teammates of the Dodgers, of the 1988 champion LA Dodgers. Fans may not remember, but Rick Horton was a part of that team, and so was John Tudor.
Spoke with him today. We're talking about getting together. Looking forward to seeing John, and and many teammates that I haven't seen in a long time. The guys that have stayed in the game: Mike Socha, Alfredo Griffin, Kirk Gibson, Hershiser, Fernando. The guys I've seen, but many others I haven't in 30 years. So it'll be fun to connect with them.
Here's a 1-2. And a fly ball lifted to center. 2018 marks the 50th anniversary of the 1968 National League Championship Club. And Saturday, May 19th, 30,000 fans 16 and older take home a wearable replica of that 68 ring. Tickets at Cardinals.com/promotions. Where were you when Kirk Gibson hit that home run off of Dennis Eckersley?
He was in the Dodger bullpen, and I was next to Jesse Orozco, who's the only player that's not able to go. I'm kind of bummed about that because Jesse became a Cardinal at the end of his career. I think he pitched
traded for Joe McEwing.
I think he pitched in the big leagues for 37 years. I mean, Jesse was around a long time. But Jesse, when Gibson hit that home run, he picked me up and carried me around the bullpen, and that's kind of that's my memory of that moment. Of course, I told the story many times of seeing Gibson in the locker room prior, and many did and thought this is a bad idea, but it turned into a good one.
Vin Scully saying on the broadcast he was doing the World Series, and he said Kirk Gibson will not play tonight. And Gibson, as he tells it and has told us at the Fox seminar, he said, you can bet your blank I'm going to play tonight now.
Yeah.
It got him fired up. And they worked on him literally all game just to get him to walk to the on-deck circle and then into the ball game.
I just look forward to some of the guys like that just getting a chance to thank them for being good teammates. And, you know, I kind of jumped on that bandwagon a little late too. I got traded there in August, so felt like I was kind of crashed the party a little bit, but it's okay.
Hey, doesn't matter.
Good party to crash.
Right.
I did have an invitation, but yeah, it wasn't there on the initial planning.
Jesse Orozco got the final out of the 1986 Mets championship, that historic team, and then a part of really one of the more historic games ever in baseball history, the Kirk Gibson home run. Ironically enough, Jesse Orozco finished up his career with the Minnesota Twins.
Played 24 years. I exaggerated when I said 37, but not by much.
Not by much. Take a guess the year that he retired. This may surprise you too.
2003.
See, I don't want the guys in the truck to be helping you.
Well, how do you know they did that? How do you know I just don't know
tell. You didn't know.
No, I didn't know. That's actually amazing. That's amazing to me.
I mean, you wouldn't think 2003.
It's good to be left-handed and be able to throw strikes. You play the game a long time if you stay healthy, and Jesse was able to do that.
And Bader puts it in play to second. Here's some of the pitchers on that 1988 Dodger team. My partner Rick Horton, but John Tudor. There's just some names that may surprise you. Some wouldn't, of course. Oral Hershiser was remarkable that year. Fernando Valenzuela, Don Sutton, the Hall of Famer.
It surprised me when I saw the list. I didn't know he was gone by the time I got there. But how about that?
Yeah,
Don Sutton, and of course we see him because he's a broadcaster with the Braves, and Don was always around the Dodgers even years after that, and he actually had a number of starts for the team in 1988.
See, my personal opinion of your trip to LA, I'm jealous. I'm assuming that Vin Scully will be there too.
I'm hoping so.
That was always a thrill for me. We'd go to Dodger Stadium and have the chance to go in his booth early. So he'd get there probably 3 o'clock, 3:30, something like that. We'd be at the ballpark, or at least I would, because I'd put in the work. and have the chance to visit with Vince Scully. And then you'd crash that party because you'd come late to work, and I did all the prep.
It's okay.
I'm not bitter or anything.
Fun to crash parties.
Ever the optimist one, Al Roboski.
We are not quitting. I'm not quitting. Al's not quitting.
No.
Scotty's not quitting. I love it.
With Chevy called to the pen, Luke Gregerson. Numbers on the right-hander. Has allowed a hit in his last 4 outings. Beach ball made its way onto the field. Speaking of Dodger Stadium. And the first pitch is strike. Did you talk to Vince Scully much when you were playing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Vin was very approachable, very easy to get along with, likable, positive.
There was also the great call of Jack Buck on the radio side. Don't believe what I just saw.
We also had Don Drysdale doing some games.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's the Bob Gibson of the Dodger
no question
family, although he shares that with Sandy Koufax.
Was Sandy kind of a mystery even then?
A little bit. There was a day in spring training where they were told me that I need to work on developing a curveball when I was only throwing a slider. They said, go back. You threw a curveball in the minor leagues in college, high school. He said, we're going to go work on the backfields with you. And they sent me back there to work with Sandy Koufax on throwing a curveball. Talk about intimidating. It's like, wait a minute.
That's pretty cool, though.
And Sandy's one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Sandy's just a gentleman, absolute gentleman. But he was not around a lot.
How about Jack Buck? Did you visit with him a lot?
Oh, I did my first Jack Buck, my first game with Jack Buck. After playing, and while I played, he would interview me all the time because nobody else ever wanted to talk.
And you were happy to do it, huh?
Glad to do it.
That really is true. You know, there's certain guys on teams that when things are going well or poorly, especially poorly, they're kind of the go-to guys for the clubhouse and for the media. speak for, and it may be in generalities, but they're there to at least speak and talk about the tough times or a tough loss. A lot of times those are the guys that become broadcasters too. But then you had two guys, I've said it all the time, I couldn't believe that Chris Duncan and Brad Thompson became broadcasters,
right,
and really good ones. Very good, excellent at what they do.
Especially Chris, who's terrific. But Chris really very standoffish and kind of did not want to talk.
I asked him, I said one time we were doing a post-game show together. I just looked at him. We went to a break, and he had broken down, various hitters and what was happening and why you had to protect because a particular umpire was. I mean, he got really into it. And I just looked at him. I said, "Man, this is during the break. I said, you are outstanding at this." And I said, "I mean it. You're doing a great job." And I said, "But, why didn't you ever talk to me when you were playing?" And he said, "Dan," he said, I saw you around all the time. And he said, "I wasn't being standoffish. I really wasn't. I didn't mean to put you off." He said, "I was just worried about trying to catch a ball." He said, "It consumed me trying to catch a fly ball." And he was serious about it. And he was behind Albert Pujols. He's not going to play first base. He's out of position. He's playing the outfield. He said, "I was just so consumed with the smallest, you would think, easiest thing to do, catch a ball."
I think the moral of that story is, as we think about all these Cardinal players, as we look around the field, they all have different personalities, and you can't kind of judge them based on fully on what they say to the media or say publicly, because that may be their way of getting ready to play. We just have to kind of give them their space. Some guys are going to talk about it, some guys aren't.
Well, I encourage anybody, especially those that are fighting ALS, those that know people that have ALS, go to my Twitter feed and watch the video of Stephen Piscotty. I'm telling you, it's one of the most gripping things you'll ever see. And the tail end of it, not to give it all away, but when he was a boy, there's a high fly ball, but he loved Amazing Grace, and they said that song would put him to sleep. And at the tail end of the piece, his mother's in bed. He's playing his guitar and singing her Amazing Grace. It's incredible. or so now probably has the feeling of when he was wearing a Marlins jersey. The amount of people that are here at the ballpark.
It just has not been an exciting night offensively for the Cardinals, and you'd have to say that their starting pitcher is the reason for that. And he really just took the air right out of this ballpark, didn't he?
Sure did. And especially on the heels of the excitement of last night, the weekend.
You know, think about that moment when Jed Jerko, who will hit next, had that really good cut at a pitch. There wasn't even enough of that, Dan, to give you much hope.
Ozuna has been battling the home plate umpire in the strike zone. He strikes out for the 3rd time tonight. Here's what you're talking about, Fernando Romero.
Well, he was just lights out. He controlled the bottom part of the strike zone, a very liberal strike zone here tonight, but a consistent one. And the slider down and in and on the outside corner, and a ton of strikeouts, 9 of them for Fernando Romero. Pretty impressive.
By the way, the last Marlins home game, they had 5,694 in attendance. Here's the 0-1. I believe that is a Marlins man behind home plate tonight.
Interesting.
Lawrence Levy, better known as Marlins man. He no longer will attend Marlins games. So he had an issue with Derek Jeter. And a strikeout of Jerko. So the strikeouts piling up in this game for the Cardinals.
Well, as Al Roboski told us, we still have not lost hope, Dan, because we've got one more chance. Are you feeling it?
Al's been known to be on particular medications here and there.
You know, he's got the last word tonight.
I thought about that too.
Yeah, right in mid-sentence, didn't you?
Yes. I love Al.
Of course. How can you not?
And DeYoung a good night. One of the bright spots with 3 hits. Al will be with me on the upcoming road trip through San Diego and Minnesota.
Well, not a lot of bright spots offensively, except for Paul DeYoung.
So 3 of their 4 hits. The rest of the club is 1 for 24.
So you're saying we have a chance?
Got a chance. Al, I'm with you. Al is one of the more recognizable figures in town, and he's incredibly gracious with his time for charities.
Absolutely.
He is involved in a ton, and great with fans. See it all the time. We're on a train in Montreal one time coming back. Now that's not Al, that's Michaelis. Been on a train in Montreal, and he was holding court. It's one of my first times being in Montreal with the baseball team with Al. I thought, what is going on here? And he was great with everybody.
Oh yeah.
It's been like that ever since. That is the final out. And Minnesota comes in. They allowed just 4 hits tonight. Impressive 6-0 win.
Too much Fernando Romero.
Off to the post-game show. Scott Warman, Al Rabaski standing by.